I've done quite a bit of traveling over the course of my life, and one of the ways that I always knew that I had arrived home is that as I walked in the door, my daughter, Gianna, when she saw me, she would say to me, "Daddy, what did you bring me? What did you bring me?" And at first, when I was a new dad, I thought, I want to make sure that she feels loved and she feels noticed and appreciated and thought about. So what I would do is whenever I traveled, I would always bring her something home from my travels. And I brought some of them today, in fact. For example, this little guy here, got this in Uganda on a safari. How cool is that? This wild dog here I got in Swaziland. This little Eskimo doll here I got when I went to Alaska. I brought that home for her. This little beaded thing here, I guess it's I don't even know, it holds things. Got this in Congo for her, brought that home. This right here I got in Honduras. It's a little pocket coin purse made out of like wrappers, bubblegum wrappers or candy wrappers. And then let's see what else we got right here. I got this keychain that says London. I picked this up for her in Spain. Just kidding. It was Germany. Anyway, so this kind of thing right here, these little dolls and trinkets and such, I did this sort of thing for her for a while, but then it just got weird. Like after a while, it just got over the top. She wouldn't just wait until I got home and ask, "Daddy, what did you bring me?" She actually started calling me during the trip and asking, "Daddy, what are you going to bring me from your trip?" And so when that started happening, I said, no mas, no more of this, because I began to feel that she was more interested in the gift that I was going to bring back to her than she was in me, the one who was giving it. So I started responding whenever she would ask the question, "Daddy, what did you bring me?" I would respond to her, "I brought you me, home safe and sound." That's what I would say. And then she would respond, "Dad, well, that is the best gift you could ever give me. You are all I need." No, that's a lie. She never said that. She actually never said that. I was actually met with an eye roll and some words that sounded like, "No, seriously, what did I get? What did I get? Where is it? Show it to me." That was sort of the deal. Now, I wanted to bring this up because this particular line of inquiry, this kind of questioning, isn't limited only to daddy-daughter interactions. In fact, this sort of expectation can also show up when it comes to how we interact with our Heavenly Father. In fact, at the very end of the Gospel of John, which is the focus of the series, John's biography of Jesus, we've been sort of picking that apart over the last few weeks. John actually tells us exactly what we should expect to get out of a relationship with God. And he says it this way, right at the end of his book. He says, "These miracles," or these, as he calls them, these signs, "are written down and recorded so that you may believe." Believe what? Well, believe that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God. Here it is. "And that by believing in him, you will have something." You'll have what? Well, that's the question that the audience that is receiving this biography of Jesus was asking in the first century. And interestingly, it's the exact same question that you and I are asking in the 21st century as well. Maybe that's the question that you are asking right now. In him, in Jesus, by believing in him, you will have what? You will have what? What do you get? What will I have? In other words, what do I get out of this? What do I get out of this? What do I get out of this deal? God, what are you going to bring to this relationship? What are you going to bring? What do I get out of this discipleship deal with Jesus? And that's the question that we have to deal with as we jump into the fourth installment of this Vital Signs series. We've been looking at the 7 supernatural signs that John mentions in the book that he wrote. These signs represent miracles that Jesus did, but they don't just tell us what he did. It points to who he was. And so the miracle that we're going to look at today, I think, might be the most popular miracle, the most famous miracle, the most well-known of Jesus' miracle, the feeding of the 5,000 plus. So if you have a Bible, if you have an app with you today, Bible app, I want to invite you to go ahead and join me in John chapter 6 as we look at this particular story. And it starts in verse 1 of John 6, which says this: After this, Jesus crossed over to the other side. He's heading to the northern part, the northern shore of the Sea of Galilee, also known as the Sea of Tiberias. Now, he's heading off to this area, and it's a very remote location. He's heading into sort of a place where nobody is supposed to be. And he's going there, I think, because he's beginning to grieve the death of his cousin, a guy named John the Baptist. And so he wants to get away. He wants to be able to process. He wants to be able to pray, but he can't get away because, verse 2, a huge crowd kept following him wherever he went. And they're following him because at this point in Jesus' ministry and in this point of his life, he's the teacher in Israel. And so as a result of that, he's always being swarmed by the masses. Why? Because of his faith, because of his insights, because of his teaching? No. Because they saw his miraculous signs as he healed the sick. So the thing is, as Jesus was trying to get away and catch his breath, he's now being hounded by thousands of first century miracle chasers. And my guess, he's really worn out. That's why he's getting away. But the people are also on their way to see him. So now, instead of attempting to find some serenity, John records, verse 3, then Jesus climbed a hill and he sat down with his disciples around him. Verse 4, it was nearly time for the Jewish Passover celebration. Verse 5, Jesus soon saw a huge crowd of people coming to look for him. All these people were coming to Jesus, and Jesus knew why they were coming. They wanted something from him. That they wanted Jesus to do yet another trick. They wanted another miracle, another event where they could go home and talk about what they saw. They wanted him to show another sign of who he was. So Jesus decides to turn this moment into a teachable moment for his disciples. So it says, turning to Philip, he asked him, where can we, what? Where can we? It's up there, my friends. Where can we buy? He says, where can we buy bread to feed all of these people? Now, I want you to imagine the scene that is happening right here, right now, because you have masses and messes of humanity making their way to meet Jesus. So many people with so many needs. You have paralyzed people being carried on mats to meet Jesus. You have other ill individuals who are supported by the shoulders of their friends and their family. You've got blind people who are being led by the hand to this remote location. You have this motley crew of humanity that is merging to meet up with Jesus in the middle of nowhere in some no-name city. And as they converge on that field, Jesus decides to ask one of his disciples a question that sounds like it's coming out of left field. He says, where are we going to be able to buy enough bread to feed all of these people who are here? And I imagine that Philip is thinking in this moment, Jesus, don't you see who's here right now? Don't you see who has showed up? I think the greatest need of this group is not to carb up. Like, that's not what they're here for. Plus, we're in the healing business, not the mealing business. Like, that's what we're about, Jesus. But like an expert teacher, Jesus pulls one of his rabbi mind tricks and asks a leading question. Where are we going to buy all of this stuff? Because, verse 6, he's testing Philip. He's testing him, for he already knew, Jesus already knew what he was going to do. And so Philip responds in the exact way that Jesus thought he would. Verse 7, Philip replied, well, Jesus, even if we worked for months and months and months, we wouldn't even have enough money to feed them. So looking at this particular situation, Philip concludes, if we worked for 6 months, we couldn't even do this. So to answer Jesus' question, how are we going to buy food for them? He's like, we can't. What you're asking Jesus is impossible. Now, whenever this story is told, whenever this story is read, whenever this story is preached about, this is the point where Andrew, one of the other disciples that follow Jesus, where Andrew gets to put a W on the board for demonstrating his great faith. Whenever this story gets told, he always gets the win. The thinking is this: where Philip lacked creativity in his spiritual problem-solving skills, Andrew gets credit for having this amazing holy imagination and for believing in Jesus' unlimited potential and his miracle prowess. And the way that most people read verse 8 is like this: Then Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, he spoke up. Verse 9, there's a young boy here, Jesus, with 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. But what good is that with this huge crowd? Oh, Andrew, such a model disciple. You're nailing it, buddy. Person of great faith. Yeah, I don't think so. Now, what you may not know about the disciples is that they were around middle school aged boys. Maybe young high school aged boys. And so Andrew is not offering Jesus an alternative option to Philip's small thinking negativity. This is a prank. This is what you might call biblical buffoonery. You can call it that. Andrew's making a joke. He's making a joke here. Andrew's like, hey kid, come here. You want to meet Jesus? Give me your lunch. Give me your lunch. Oh, Jesus, we can't buy enough food for everybody that needs to eat here like you wanted. But here's this kid. He's got some bread. He's got some pickled fish. These loaves, these fish, they're about as likely to feed all the people as having enough money for us to buy food for all these people, Jesus. Like, it's a joke. It's a joke he's making. He's not serious about what he's saying. So, Jesus, the quintessential youth pastor, can't leave a prank unreciprocated. He decides to respond, and in the process of his response, he blows their adolescent minds. Verse 10, Jesus says, tell everyone to sit down. Not line up? You don't want them to line up, Jesus? Nope, have them just sit down. So they all sat down on the grassy slopes. The men alone numbered about 5,000. Women, children, men, probably 15,000 people there. In verse 11, it says, then Jesus took the loaves. He probably said, thanks for the food, little buddy. Here, go ahead, sit down. Watch this. It's going to be cool. And turning to the disciples, Jesus gave thanks. He says, all right, boys, disciples here, bow your heads, close your eyes. It's time to pray for the meal. Yeah, you close your eyes, okay? And I can guarantee you in that moment, as they were circled up, that no one had their eyes closed. They were looking all at each other with kind of the, what is he doing here? Look, they're asking, well, what does he do? I don't know what he's doing. What's happening? And so Jesus finishes his prayer, and something spectacular happens. Something supernatural happens because he hands some of the food to the disciples, and they distributed the food to the people, and afterwards they did the same thing with the fish, and the amount distributed wasn't just some snack-sized portion. It wasn't an appetizer. Instead, they all ate as much as they wanted. And everyone was full, verse 12 says. When everyone was full, Jesus told his disciples, now gather up the leftovers so that nothing is going to be wasted. Jesus doesn't waste anything. So they picked up the pieces. They filled the 12 baskets with scraps left by the people who had eaten from the barley loaves. When the people saw him do this miraculous sign, they exclaimed, surely he is the prophet we have been expecting. And here's where the story begins to turn. Because you see, this sign, this miracle, this bread represented what they wanted Jesus to be. This bread that he passed out, miraculously multiplied, this bread was the sign that Jesus was the king who would and could initiate a coup d'etat of the Roman government. They wanted to be free of the oppression of the Romans. That's what they were expecting. That's what they wanted. That's what they were wanting Jesus to bring them. But that's not what Jesus wanted to give them. So verse 15 says, when Jesus saw that they were ready to force him to be their king, he slipped away into the hills by himself. Now we read this and we get to this point in the story and we're sort of forced to ask the question, what did they do wrong? I mean, why are they kind of the bad guys in this story? What did all the people do wrong in this story? I mean, Jesus was the one who initiated the miracle, right? I mean, he's the one that created the sign, who put the idea in their mind that he might just be the Messiah they were hoping for. Why are they in the wrong? Why did they not get it right? Well, actually, we get some insight into the real issue behind this story a few verses later. Check it out in verse 26. In response to their wanting to make him king, Jesus replied, I tell you the truth, you want to be with me because I fed you, not because you understood the miraculous signs. And look at verse 30. They answered, well, show us a miraculous sign if you want us to believe in you. What can you do? What can you do? What did he just do? What more do you need? You see, they want to know when Jesus' food truck is coming around again. It's going to be open again, serving again. They're asking him, if we follow you, what will we get out of it? What will you give us? What will you bring us? What can you do for us? What did they do wrong? Well, they missed the point of this whole thing. And in missing the point, they missed the person. They missed the person. As I wrap this up today, I want you to think about what happened this way, what they got wrong this way. Think about it this way. I don't know if you know this about me, but I love Apple products. I love them. I love Apple products. I have pretty much every Apple product you could ever have. I've got an iPhone. I got an iPad. In fact, I'm preaching from an iPad. I got an iPad. I got a MacBook. I got an Apple TV. My wife has all the same stuff. She's even got an Apple Watch. My daughter has Apple stuff. Like, we're an Apple family. We love it. We love it. I love it. So, with that in mind, imagine that Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple, imagine that he hears about my great love for his products, and so he calls me up. He gives me a ring, and he tells me that he's coming through Menominee, because all great CEOs come through Menominee. That's just standard fare, right? He's coming through Menominee, and he would love to have lunch with me. And he asked me this, and of course I say yes, and we agree to meet at the Exit 45 restaurant because Tim Cook also loves biscuits and gravy. I didn't know that, but he does. Now, we get there, we sit down, and we exchange some pleasantries, and even before they bring out the water, I say to him, hey, Tim, thank you so much for asking me here today. Since you're here, I wonder if you might be able to hook me up with an iPhone upgrade. Yeah, when I first bought my iPhone 13, when they came out, I thought I wouldn't need as much storage as I do, but I really do. You know, I'm taking a lot of 4K videos these days. It's really eating up my storage. What do you say? Do you think you could make a call for me? Do you think you could send an email on my behalf, shoot a text, maybe get me an upgrade, help a brother out? Will you do it, Tim? I mean, you are the most important person at that company. I know you can make this happen for me. Also, do you think you could get that overnighted to my house as well? That'd be awesome. Thanks, Tim. I totes appreciate it. Now, if this scenario was real life, and I did that, that's really gross, right? That's like super gross. Because here's the deal. When someone more important than you wants to spend time with you, their presence is the gift. When someone who's more important than you, someone who's a bigger deal than you, someone who matters to this world more than you, when someone who's more important than you wants to hang out with you, wants to spend time with you, wants to be with you, their presence is the gift. Their presence is not what you get from them is the gift, but their presence, the fact that they're with you, is the gift. You see, the problem with the sort of scenario with Tim that I just made up a little bit ago is that it's impossible to have a meaningful connection with somebody you're trying to get something from. It's impossible to have a significant relationship with somebody where you're trying to get them to give you something. Whether it's your spouse, or whether it's a sibling or another family member or a friend or a neighbor or a coworker or Tim Cook or the creator of the universe. It's impossible to have a real relationship when one person is more interested in the gift than the one who is giving it. And you know that to be true. I know that. We all know this. But like the crowd that Jesus interacted with that day, the 5,000, it's so easy for us to lose sight of that truth. That it's not about the gift, it's about the giver. And we lose sight of that. We lose sight of that as individuals, and we can even lose sight of that as a church. And so I think it's so important for us from time to time to push pause and reevaluate our relationship with God. That we do that. In fact, this happened for a church in a major way a little over 20 years ago. It was a church called Soul Survivor Church, which is located just on the outside of London, England. And at the time, 20 years ago at this church, it was an exciting time. It was a great time. They were growing numerically. Young people started coming. The pastor at that church was actually getting kind of famous. The worship leader, a guy named Matt Redman, was gaining even greater notoriety because the songs he was writing were being played and sung all over the world. And in an interview about that time, Matt Redman said that as a church, they had lost focus. They had shifted to focusing on the gifts and not the giver of the gifts. They were focusing more on the gifts than Jesus, the giver. And he said in an interview, he said the dynamic was missing in the church. We had lost track of what we were really supposed to be doing. And so the pastor did a really brave thing. He decided to get rid of what we considered to be the gifts. He decided to get rid of the sound system and get rid of the band for a season. And his point in that was that they had lost their way in worship. And the way to get back to the heart would be to strip everything away so you can focus on the giver of the gifts. And that's exactly what they did, and they kept it like that for a while. Now, thinking about this, obviously Matt Redman, he felt utterly useless because he was the worship leader and he didn't have anything to do all week. But he said in the end, it was actually the greatest thing that's ever happened. It was an incredible time of reflection for him because it helped him refocus on the fact that the presence of Jesus is actually the greatest gift of all. And it was also during that time that he wrote the song that we're about to sing. And I wonder if today it might be for us, this moment might be for us what it was for Matt Redman and Soul Survivor Church. That it might be for us an opportunity to experience the greatest gift that we could ever receive, the presence of Jesus in our lives. That it might be for us an opportunity not to try to get something from God, but instead to give something to Him. Instead of asking our Heavenly Father, what did you bring me? What are you going to give me? That we might bring ourselves to Him today. And so I want to invite all of us to go ahead and stand right now as we prepare for this moment. And I want to invite you to take the next few minutes to make sure that you are not more enamored with the miraculous than you are with who the miraculous is pointing us to. That you aren't more interested in the gift than you are the gift giver. And so, friends, take a moment and let the words of this song remind you and recalibrate your heart to the reality that Jesus is here. And all of this is all about